speaking here, and my personal opinion, I think it gets done.
Geordie Journos back for a new Premier League season. We've been speaking, myself and Jordan, to Eddie Howe this morning at the new Newcastle United Media Centre at Northumberland FA. Look at that.
Yeah,
Lovely.
You may recognise the background. It's the pitch the under 21s usually play on, maybe other academy sides as well. But
Whitley Park.
Yeah, it's
a lovely Tyneside morning. And did you enjoy speaking to Eddie Howe this morning, your mate Eddie?
It was good to be. It gets you back in the routine, doesn't it? It gets you back in the routine of Friday press. I was getting up at about 7 o'clock in the morning to come to the new media centre now. But yeah, it was good to speak to him this morning. Transfers as ever, well on the agenda. Don't think you give too much away, but I think that's probably the place to start. It's the thing that everyone has talked about. You guys want to know about. Marc Guehi is the man that Newcastle are currently pursuing. Reports of a fourth bid this morning, closer to Palace's £65 million, rumoured £65 million valuation under consideration. That's from the Mail Sports Sammy Mockbell. That was put to Eddie Howe. He said not that I know of in terms of that fourth bid. So Eddie Howe, as ever, not giving too much away on transfers, which is what I asked him about actually, because Palace this week have been very public in their
discussion of just Marc Guehi's future.
Yeah, Steve Parish doing interviews with BBC, Sky Sports, TalkSport on Tuesday. You then had 24 hours later, it's streamed on Sky of Marc Guehi talking about the upcoming game this weekend. At the minute he's going to start against Brentford on Sunday, Palace's first game. So yeah, it's been a deal that's been played out in public this week, which is a belief that Eddie Howe doesn't believe in.
I believe he doesn't believe in.
Belief he doesn't believe in. I wish I could find a way to phrase that better, but I asked him about that because Eddie Howe is a man that gives nothing away on transfers. We ask all the time about individual players. He never ever gives anything away. So I asked Eddie Howe about how do you feel that this deal has been played out in public this week. I asked if he was frustrated, disappointment. He said not at all. He can only control what he does, and he believes that that deal shouldn't be played out in public. He wants to be treated the way that he treats deals in terms of when he's asked about players. Reading between the lines, maybe that's a little dig at Crystal Palace. I don't think it was, but reading back the coach, you could probably look at it that way. So it's been a bit of a mad week in terms of the Marc Guehi saga. Does it get resolved? I think we've just been speaking sort of off camera there. I think Newcastle seem persistent in trying to get Marc Guehi. They're going back and back and back. I do think because of this Marc Guehi's contract situation, he's got 2 years left. I think it's a lot of money for Crystal Palace to turn down. If Newcastle get towards that reported figure of 65 million, it's a lot of money for Crystal Palace to turn down when you're thinking about, well, it'll be in a year's time, he's got 1 year left on his contract, he'd then be 6 months away from being able to speak to clubs to go on a free transfer. So it's a lot of money. I think Palace have shown a really strong resolve this week with Steve Parish's comments, but I do wonder as it longer ticks towards that deadline, in just under a fortnight's time, well, that stance becomes a little bit weaker, shall we say. So I think it's positive that Newcastle are going back. I think, speaking here on my personal opinion, I think it gets done, but we shall wait and see. That's my personal opinion. I don't know facts on that, but as I say, the noises I'm hearing, it's fairly positive.
Yeah, I think a week ago, if you'd asked, we both would have probably said, we don't see this getting done. That sort of money, Newcastle need a right winger, but the Newcastle's persistence and the confidence you sort of gauging from the club makes you think there's a chance now. And yeah, I think this rumoured fourth bid, if it's anywhere near Crystal Palace's valuation of 65 million, I personally would snap the hand off. It's for that sort of money. Marc Guehi, I'd actually argue that's quite. It's a bit too expensive. I don't think he's a £65 million player. But in today's market, English, international, he's done well at the Euros. He's still only 24. He's got that potential to be a generational talent, as Steve Parish maybe oversold him slightly.
Superstar, you call him, which
he has that potential.
I mean, that was put to Marc Guehi, the superstar tag, and he said he didn't think he was, which be honest, I agree with Marc Guehi. I don't think he is in that superstar category. I think he's a very, very good defender. Had an excellent Euros as this tripod flies. Well,
new season, same old track.
Yeah, Marc Guehi, superstar tag. I don't think he's quite in that bracket yet. I think he's had one good tournament with England. It was his sort of breakthrough tournament.
He was good at the Euros. I wouldn't say he was exceptional. He didn't blow me away. I thought he was the sort of new kid on the block who did well.
Yeah,
there's nothing more than that.
It's a lot of money for a guy that's played at Palace for probably the last 3 years. Okay, has went on to captain Palace and clearly is a very, very good player. But in terms of what he's achieved in his career, that pedigree of not playing European football. Okay, he's got a Euro 2024 on his belt, which is a real positive step. But when you talk about that sum of money, you think about a top centre half. And maybe I caveat with the fact that this transfer fees nowadays are just so inflated, and I think the market is crazy where you're paying fees for players all the time when they aren't worth that, but it's just because of the way that the market currently is. And to be fair, I think the market will only get worse in terms of transfer fees. I think probably the next 5 years, £60 million for a player will become probably the norm for a I'm not going to say standard Premier League player, but a good Premier League player. Yeah. So look, I don't think he's worth that, but that's the deal Newcastle want. So I think it's really important now, because this deal's played out in public, and this isn't their fault that they go and get this deal, because if they walk away from it, which I think they could do if they don't, Eddie Howe mentioned in the press conference, they've done it before with deals. After they feel like they're being charged too much, they will walk away, and maybe this fourth bid is the final sort of bid, if you like. And if they don't want to accept the close to the valuation, which is what the bid has been reported of, then Eddie can look elsewhere. So we'll just have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I think there's confidence it could get done, but if Palace turn this bid down, I think it will be hard to come back from it. But we'll wait and see. I'm still of the opinion Newcastle need a right winger, and they need to address that. That is a more pressing area of the pitch that needs improving. I think once you get Newcastle back to full strength with Sven Botman, Fabian Schär, Marc Guehi probably gets in the team, but it's not a certain. And I think right winger, if you get any sort of Premier League proven right winger, would be an upgrade on what Newcastle have at the moment. And Eddie Howe was asked about that. Miguel Almiron, who's obviously been linked with Charlotte FC in the MLS, allowed to talk to the club. Deal didn't come to fruition. MLS transfer window now closed. So as it stands, Miguel Almiron set to stay at Newcastle unless some other club comes in. There's obviously been Saudi Arabia interest as well. But Eddie Howe very much happy to keep Miguel Almiron as things stand.
He called him a really valued member of the squad, praised his professionalism, commitment, which
fair enough.
He did say that probably the last few months have been difficult for Almiron, because look, his future has been uncertain since January, since he had that opportunity to go to Saudi Arabia, but subsequently turned down the opportunity to move mid-season. I think it's no secret that Newcastle would be willing to part ways with Almiron if someone meets the fee that they'd hope for, and I'd imagine, I don't know how much they would want, but Almiron,
similar to what they paid.
So I would say 15 million, north of 15 million. I would say Newcastle won for Almiron. And when Charlotte FC officials arrived in the UK on Monday, I called it straight away, where I thought I don't see how an MLS club affords Miguel Almiron, because it's not a league that pays big fees. This is clubs that literally pick players from drafts, etc., and don't. I think the record transfer fee is something like 12 million from that league. So it was an ambitious swoop from Charlotte. Talks are held, but ultimately the player stayed as I expected. Of course, he could still go in the final 2 weeks of the transfer window. That interest from Saudi is still there, from what I understand. But I think now, if you had asked us a few weeks ago, I would have said it was more likely Almiron would leave. Now I think I'm in the camp of Almiron probably will stay, to be honest. And I think that could mean that Newcastle don't go out and sign a right forward, and if they do get a Marc Guehi deal over the line, I think that could be the end of it, because I think the as what Eddie Howe mentioned there, as much as Newcastle don't have to sell to meet financial fair play regulations, in a next transfer window they probably will have to be looking at PSR again and being like, look, we need to raise funds. So if money was to come in from, as I mentioned there, they probably would sell, but I'm just not sure that's going to arrive. And yeah, how big is the budget? We don't know. Again, PSR caveat of that, we don't know. It does feel like it feels like they'll probably have to sell to bring in a player in that position on the right hand side.
And Eddie Howe was asked about potential outgoings. It was one of my questions. He was asked about it later in the press conference as well, and he seemed quite relaxed. He was like, they've got a small squad. There's no pressing need to get rid of players, even though looking at the squad list of players above the age of 21, it does go above that 25-man threshold. So players will have to be loaned out, whether it's your Jamal Lewis's, Harrison Ashby's. They've got 5 goalkeepers, one of them. So yeah, there will have to be movement in some respect, but I think Eddie Howe, probably speaking today in terms of first team players, recognised first team players, he's probably quite satisfied with the players he's got, and maybe not losing anyone between now and the end of the transfer window, which, I mean, you saying they're not going to sign a right winger, I think is...
I mean, it's just the feel...
That doesn't fill me with hope.
It's just the feeling I get that. I feel like they're obviously going to put all the eggs in sort of one basket.
That's
by
what it
paying
feels like, doesn't it?
A big fee for, as I say, Marc Guehi, if that is to get done. And then you leave yourself with how much to go and spend for a right wing. That's probably not going to be enough to go and sign a like sort of marquee right forward. And that's why I think an exit would likely have to happen in order for a sort of a high profile winger to come in. And as I say, at this moment, I think Almiron will remain in the club, and I do think as a consequence of that they'll have to park the right forward position until kick the can down the road, as I say, until the next transfer window, which I don't think is a particularly good idea. I think if you weigh it up, I would actually, I don't know, actually, it's hard. I think the right forward position is as pressing as the centre half position.
I think it's
that's
more.
what I would say. And obviously
I think it's more because Newcastle's quality at the centre back position, they've got a bit of depth, injuries of course, but you've signed one in Lloyd Kelly. You've got Dan Burn who can play there. You've got Fabian Schär, who we say if he's fit, he's a guaranteed starter. So you've got really one place that's up for grabs. Sven Botman will be fit towards the back end of the year, maybe into 2025.
Yeah.
So that's still an area where there potentially is competition. But right wing, Jacob Murphy's had a great pre-season. Is he the answer long term? No. Miguel Almiron? No. So that's an area that needs strengthening here and now. And look, Paul Mitchell, Eddie Howe know a lot more about the ins and outs of what Newcastle need than I do. It's just my personal feeling that I think putting all your eggs in the Marc Guehi basket could come back to haunt Newcastle. And the comment Eddie Howe said is you don't want to make a signing and then 4 months down the line you go, well, it hasn't really improved the team, which I think last summer there was a little bit of that.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of that. I mean, Tonali banned, Lewis Hall didn't really come good until the final few weeks of the season. Livramento battling Kieran Trippier, Harvey Barnes impact sub, so there was a lot of that last summer. Even now, you talk about, you think he's quite happy with the players that they've signed, but none of them immediately prove the start 11. That's why they're desperate to get a player like Marc Guehi. And as I say, that right wing position is so pressing, but I just think,
nothing's forthcoming at the moment.
No.
But that's maybe a good thing based on Eddie Howe. He likes to keep things under wraps, keep things secret, doesn't want it to play out in the media, and sometimes when it does play out in the media, you know ourselves, it's not necessarily a good sign.
Yeah.
And that was probably why the Marc Guehi thing we were initially very sort of sceptical about, but now Newcastle's determination makes it look like that could potentially happen now. So yeah, you touched on Tino Livramento. We've touched on it previously on this channel. Big season ahead for him, and he's got a competition with Kieran Trippier, who has only recently returned. He's only had one pre-season game.
Yeah.
That right back position, I know we're both. Kieran Trippier should start, even though Livramento has played most of pre-season. I think he's been hot and cold in pre-season, honestly, but that was his chance to grab the position for the starting game against his former club, but you still think Trippier's the man?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a comment on Twitter the other day saying, look, there needs to be a change in the guard at some point where Trippier does come in, Livramento comes in, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. But whilst Kieran Trippier is at this football club, why wouldn't you use him? I think that there's a big difference between Livramento and Trippier, and I think athleticism, pace, Livramento wipes the floor obviously, but then that final ball in the final third, that conviction, that injection of quality on that right hand side comes through Kieran Trippier. As I mentioned on the channel last time, 10 assists last season, you can't argue with that. Has been the way Newcastle have played over the time that Eddie Howe has been in charge, and Kieran Trippier has been at the club. He has been at the forefront of everything Newcastle have created. Now, you talk about Bruno being the heart of this team, but Kieran Trippier is very close to that as well. He's created so many chances from that right hand side. Even that pre-season game last Saturday that he played, it was in the first half he put in 3 balls in the box and they all could have been goals. I just don't think Livramento quite gives you that. It's weighing it up. If you want two sort of dynamism, two fullbacks to give you dynamism, you've got Livramento and Hall, that's great. But if you want that bit of final quality, Trippier for me still has that. And Livramento still has a lot to prove. And he's still very young. He's still only 21, so he's still got a lot to learn. And that's not a criticism of Livramento. He's a very, very young lad, and I do think he'll be an excellent player for this football club in years to come. And I do think he would be ready to step in now. If you play Livramento for the full season, I'd have no qualms about that, because I think he's a very, very good player, and I think he will get better. But Kieran Trippier for me still has so many pros over the cons that maybe people look at Kieran Trippier now because of, as I say, the speculation around his future, his age, there as last year, but he's still a very, very good player.
Yeah, he had a dodgy couple of months where he was making really uncharacteristic errors, but then they were becoming really regular and almost characteristic. Then he was linked with a move away, and I think people wrote him off after that, and then he got injured. But I think quality-wise, he's still right up there in terms of what a right back can deliver. And there was a stage last season before the whole errors started creeping in, where I think Alexander Isak was a little bit injured, in and out the team. Kieran Trippier was probably Newcastle's best attacking outlet for a stage when he was getting those assists. He got 3 assists against Sheffield United. He was the best player on the park against AC Milan. That spell from like September, October time into November, he was probably Newcastle's best attacking outlet, and that has been the case. He's been up there since basically his first full season at the club. Obviously he was injured shortly after his arrival, but yeah, I think obviously age is a factor, and he's not getting any younger, and he admits that himself. The quality is going to, or his physical output is going to decline, but I think the technical ability is still very much there, and I think he should start the opening game and should be shown that love, as Eddie Howe put it, because he has been linked with a move away, and I think it's important that he gets that love. Yeah,
he wants. He mentioned that he wants to see love for the players that have been linked away. So Callum Wilson as well, Almiron. I think Eddie Howe's very much a manager where, look, he's worked with these players for a long time, particularly Callum Wilson as well. As long as they're at the football club, he will use them, and he wants to make them feel valued. And I think he wants Newcastle fans to do that as well.
He likes players he can trust, doesn't he, Eddie Howe? And I think there's a certain degree, it's like a comfort blanket. Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier, I know what I'm going to get from these players when they're fit, when on the pitch.
Which player loyalty isn't always
a bad thing.
Yeah, it isn't always a bad thing, it isn't always a good thing either.
No.
But as I say, the Newcastle are in a position at the moment where them players will likely stay at the club, so as long as they're here, let's get behind them.
Yeah. And another player who's been shown the love this week, we got confirmation finally. We've done a video about the uncertainty of it all. Sandro Tonali, return date. Newcastle said the 27th, the FA said the 29th. We did a video saying Newcastle had sort of went back on their statement of the 27th and were working to the 29th.
Yeah.
Now they've received confirmation from the Italian FA, so different thing altogether, that it's the 28th. So all a mess. Yeah. But hey, looking likely that Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup could be Sandro Tonali's return date. And Eddie Howe said Sandro Tonali will be ready to start games. He's eager to go. and he thanked fans for the sort of love and support they've shown him. Because I mean, Sandro Tonali's he's not played for the last 10 months, but probably the most chanted about player by Newcastle fans.
Yeah, it's a very catchy.
He's got a few.
I can't say I was the biggest fan of it when we were getting off trains to Luton Town in London, and people were chanting about Sandro Tonali at the time when he couldn't play. I can't say I enjoyed it then.
When Newcastle had no midfielder, basically.
Exactly. Injury crisis, I'd sing out a player who'd been banned. But no, I think as time's gone on, that chant's become really, really catchy. And look, it's the excitement is building, as I've said before. He's so close to return. It's less than 2 weeks now to that. Nottingham Forest
should be on the Wednesday, shouldn't it?
Yes, it should be. Yeah, I mean,
might be confirmed by the time.
Can they play on the Tuesday? I'm sure.
Horse after away to Bournemouth.
I'm sure there's rules where you can only play so many hours after. I don't think at Sunday, Tuesday. I don't think it's actually possible. But until you get that confirmation, who knows? Because there seems to be a conspiracy through these cup draws, because Newcastle, I think the last 7 have been away from home.
Yeah.
And then they've been really tough cup draws.
Forest is not a necessarily an easy one.
It's the furthest south he could have got in the northern section, and probably the hardest game he could have got in terms of being away from home. So make that up.
Aye, because the European team's on it.
Yeah. Which is anyway, it's a discussion for another day. I would have loved a home tie, but yeah, Sandro Tonali back. You'd think for that one. Will he start? Yeah, I think they'd be.
Eddie Howe hinted that he'd be ready to. He just needs that shot.
I think he's been training for the best part of 10 months.
The best part of it.
The best part of 10 months. And he's been playing in training ground friendlies, as we understand. That Burnley one.
Eddie Howe suggested there'd been more. I think there'd maybe been one.
So they clearly feel he's in a good physical position. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him back. Absolutely.
So yeah. Do you want to wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think
anything else?
I think we've touched on all of it.
It was a little thing, I suppose, towards the back end of the press conference, where a talking point maybe a month ago, certainly when you were in Germany, was the sort of hierarchy of the club and how the likes of Paul Mitchell, James Bunce, how that dynamic worked with Eddie Howe. Since being put to bed, but Eddie Howe basically just said it's all plain sailing now. The dust is settled on that.
Yeah, he said he was really impressed by James Bunce, which I think that was probably
it's an endorsement.
The most, it is an endorsement. I think it was probably the most threatening to him though, because as I've said on countless of times, Eddie Howe is a manager who has always kept the same coaching staff. The only guy that he ever inherited outside of the coaching staff he has now is Graham Jones,
who was at Bournemouth.
So then to bring someone in from the outside, it wasn't his appointment.
Yeah,
I think
to basically watch training as well. Yeah.
I think naturally Eddie Howe would have his backup, but yeah, he seems to be the dynamic seems to be developing between them. The same for Paul Mitchell. So I mean, I don't think he's totally content, if I'm being brutally honest. But I think as time goes on, he'll become more and more familiar of his role and how the dynamic's going to work between Mitchell, Bunce, and obviously Eddie Howe himself. And then maybe in a couple of months' time he'll be very content. I don't think he's not content now. I think he's more than happy. But I still think he's still working out how it's gonna develop in the future.
As is natural, any incoming, you sign a new player, you don't gonna say, oh, he's brilliant from the get-go.
Exactly.
You big him up as much as you can, but you can't. You need to see results before you really offer a constructive opinion on it. But yeah, that was it. Southampton tomorrow.
Yeah, can't wait.
We'll be back.
Can't wait.
New season, pre-season's over. Been an eventful pre-season. Eddie Howe didn't like the summer, didn't like June. He said the transfers.
Yeah, he did. Can't swear, can I?
Yeah.
When he was asked,
you've probably seen the press conference because the club streamed it live this morning. So yeah, we're trying to take it forward.
Trying to give our opinions
rather than just regurgitate what Eddie Howe said. But if you want to check out what we've written on the Shields Gazette in Newcastle, please do. And yeah, we'll be back at St James's Park tomorrow, joined by Liam Kennedy, I hope.
Yes.
Long-awaited return.
It is, yeah. He's
new signing.
The last, I know, yeah. It's because people have been doing the super thanks and we've managed to pay him an appearance fee. A joke, obviously, but yeah, hopefully.
While you're on
hopefully
that, though.
he is. Yeah, he is back tomorrow, unless something drastic happens. Who knows?
He's alive and well.
He is. He's fine.
That's what we can confirm.
I'm sure. Yeah, he's fine. I'm looking forward to having him back because I need a breather. I've spoke too much on these videos. with you over the last
we'll just
2
sit
weeks.
back and relax.
Yeah, I've got nothing else left to say, as you could probably tell. But yes, super thanks, as I say. It's a lot of you guys donated recently as the wind picks up. Yeah, it's been much appreciated. If you would like to donate to the Geordie Journos and help this channel grow, then there's a little thanks button underneath this video. Please donate, it's very helpful. And yeah, T's and C's. Dom, do you want to start with the sponsor?
Of course, Four Rivers Financial Planning sponsor all of our long form Geordie Journos videos like this one, like the one tomorrow. Really appreciate their support, and check them out if you need any financial planning or advice needs. So yeah, thanks to them. And please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe for all your latest Geordie Journos content. We'll see you back at St James's Park tomorrow, where we'll be reflecting on, hopefully, a Newcastle United opening day win against Southampton.